You think her sudden kindness means she loves you, but what it actually means is that she finally understands you no longer need her. Read that again. Sit with it, because everything you're about to hear in the next few minutes is going to reframe the last few months of confusion you've been carrying around like it's your fault. It's not, or at least not in the way you think it is. Here's the truth. Women do not change their behavior towards you because they suddenly had a revelation about your value. They change their behavior because your behavior changed first. And when a man finally stops chasing, stops performing, stops shrinking himself to maintain access to someone who was never fully choosing him, something shifts, not inside her heart, inside her strategy. And you need to understand the difference between those two things before you do something you'll regret. If this channel has ever given you a moment of clarity, if a single video here has ever made you feel less alone in what you're going through, then do yourself a favor and subscribe right now. Not for me, for you. Because you are going to forget this. You're going to get a text from her at 11:30 on a Tuesday night. And everything you learned here is going to disappear. Subscribe so the truth keeps showing up in your feed. Subscribe so you have something to come back to when you're standing in a parking lot, trying to talk yourself out of responding. You need reminders, not because you're weak, because you're human. And humans forget when she finally understands you're gone what they haven't yet fully become. Now, let's get into it. Here's what it really means. When she knows she lost you and her behavior changes, it means the dynamic has officially reversed. It means you stopped being predictable. It means the psychological contract she unconsciously built your relationship on, the one where she could pull away and you would always close the distance, has been broken. And she feels it. Maybe she can't name it. Maybe she doesn't understand it intellectually, but she feels it in her bones. The man she counted on to be there, to respond within minutes, to be emotionally available on demand, to be desperate in a quiet, dignified way that she could always lean on when her ego needed a bump. That man is gone. And now she's scrambling. That's what her new behavior is. It's a scramble, not love, not regret in the pure and honest sense. Scrambling. Let's build this out properly, because you deserve to understand the full picture, not just the flattering parts. The misconception first. The misconception you are carrying right now, maybe it's the reason you clicked on this video, is that her sudden warmth, her new attentiveness, her texts out of nowhere, her showing up differently means something real has changed inside her. You want to believe she's had an awakening. You want to believe that the time you gave her, the loyalty you showed her, the love you poured into something that wasn't being reciprocated, you want to believe it finally registered, that she finally looked in the mirror and thought, I was wrong. I was taking him for granted. He is the one. That story is intoxicating. Why women miss your value while they have you. It is also, in most cases, false. And I'm not saying this to be cruel. I'm saying this because I've watched too many men get pulled back into cycles that damage them. Not because the woman was evil, but because the man was still operating from hope instead of reality. Hope is not a strategy. Hope without observation is just another form of self-deception. Here's the hard truth. Her behavior changed because you became a challenge. Again, full stop. The moment you stopped pursuing, the moment you started investing your energy elsewhere, the moment your replies slowed down, the moment you stopped being the one who always reached out first, the moment you went quiet and let the silence sit, she noticed, not because she suddenly appreciated you more deeply as a human being, but because the dynamic she was comfortable with no longer existed. And that discomfort, that uncertainty, that unfamiliar feeling of not knowing where she stands with you, that activated something in her, that something has a name, that's called reactive desire. She is not desiring you because she values you. She is desiring you because she no longer feels secure in having you. That is not the same thing. It looks the same on the surface. It feels almost identical from the outside. But the root cause is completely different. And the root cause determines everything about what you should do next. Why does this happen? Why does her behavior change the moment you stop needing her? Because attraction, real, sustained, deep attraction, is in part built on polarity. It is built on the experience of two people who both bring something irreplaceable to the table, and where neither one is completely certain they have locked in the other forever. When you were chasing, when you were available every second, when you were performing for her approval, when you were bending your standards and your schedule and your emotional energy to keep her close, you didn't create love. You created comfort. You created the kind of comfort that breeds contempt. The first behavior change: what to watch for. Because when someone becomes too available, too predictable, too easy to have, the human brain, regardless of gender, stops assigning high value to what it has. This is not a theory. This is how attention economics work in every human relationship. Scarcity creates value. Presence without condition destroys it. You were so present, so giving, so unconditionally there that you accidentally communicated one of the most damaging things a man can communicate to a woman he wants. You communicated that she was worth more than yourself, and she felt it, even if she didn't articulate it, even if she would never say it out loud. Women and human beings, in general, are deeply intuitive about power dynamics. She knew somewhere beneath the surface that you needed her more than she needed you. And that knowledge, whether she acted on it consciously or not, subtly repositioned you in the story she told herself about who you both were. Now, let's talk about what this cost you. Because this isn't just a romantic theory. This has a price, and you've been paying it. You stopped having standards, not because you're a weak man, but because you were so focused on not losing her that you forgot what you were trying to build. Every time she did something that didn't sit right with you, you swallowed it. Every time she was inconsistent, you rationalized it. Every time she pulled away, you moved closer. Every time she went cold, you turned up the heat. You were compensating for her gaps with your effort, which meant you were in a constant state of working to maintain something that should have been mutual. You stopped growing. You can't grow when you're in a constant state of emotional management. You can't focus on your career, your health, your purpose, your friendships, your ambitions. You can't build the life you actually want when the majority of your mental bandwidth is dedicated to decoding someone else's behavior and calibrating your responses to keep them from leaving. You stopped knowing who you are outside of her. And that is the most expensive thing, because who you are outside of her is the psychology of regret in women everything. Your value, your peace, your future, your next relationship, your relationship with yourself, all of it lives in who you are when she's not in the room. And you let that person get smaller and smaller the longer you made her the center of your universe. That's what this cost you. That's the real damage. Now, here's the reframe, and this is where everything changes, if you let it. The fact that she's showing new behavior now, the texts, the warmth, the sudden interest, the vulnerability, the reaching out, this is not a problem. It's data. It is incredibly valuable information because it tells you something you needed to confirm. The version of you that is detached, purposeful, self-directed, and no longer performing for approval, that version of you is more attractive than everything you were doing before. All the effort, all the adjusting, all the molding yourself to what you thought she wanted, none of it worked as well as the simple act of becoming genuinely indifferent to her opinion of you. Read that again, too. Your indifference, your real, earned, genuine indifference is more powerful than anything you ever said to her or did for her. So, the question is not, should I go back? The question is, who are you going to be from this point forward? Let me tell you about a man, not a perfect man, not some mythological figure, a real man, the kind of man who gets to this point and makes a different choice than most. He doesn't wake up one day and decide to be cold. He doesn't decide to punish anyone or play games or withhold himself as a tactic. That's not what this is. He wakes up and he decides that the only relationship he will prioritize above all others for the rest of his life is the one he has with himself. Not out of arrogance, out of necessity, out of the deep bone level understanding that everything good he will ever give to anyone else comes from the well inside him. And that well has been running dry because he's been pouring from it endlessly in the wrong direction. This man builds a life that how she tests to see if you're still available does not require someone else's validation to feel whole. He has work he cares about. He has standards he actually upholds. He has friendships that are real. He has a body he takes care of. He has a mind he feeds. He has a morning routine that belongs to him and not to the chaos of whatever emotional drama is being introduced by someone who is still figuring out what she wants. He is present, but only in places and with people who are worth his presence. He is kind, but kindness without boundaries is just people pleasing dressed up in a better costume. He does not chase, not because he's too proud, but because he understands that chasing someone who isn't choosing you is not romantic. It is not loyal. It is not love. It is self-abandonment. And he has abandoned himself enough. He is done with that. He knows the difference between a woman who loves him and a woman who misses what he provided. He knows the difference because he spent time getting brutally honest with himself about what was actually happening rather than what he wanted to be happening. He grieved the fantasy. He grieved it properly. He sat with the loss of the version of the relationship he had imagined, understood that the imagined version was never real. And then he got up and moved on. Not because he didn't care, but because caring about himself meant more than holding on to something that wasn't holding him back. This man does not perform. He does not craft responses to seem cooler. He does not play hard to get as a game. He is genuinely hard to have because he is genuinely occupied with being someone. And that is the most magnetic quality a man can possess. Not his looks, not his money, not his words, not his strategies. The quality of being genuinely occupied with his own becoming. When she reaches out to this man, he is not flooded with relief. He is not desperate to capitalize on the moment. He responds when it suits him. He is honest but not eager. He is warm but not available on demand. He engages from a place of surplus, not scarcity. Her social media behavior changes. Here's why. And if the interaction leads somewhere real, somewhere mutually respectful and honest, he's open to exploring it. But if it's a test, if it's a toe in the water to see if she can pull him back into the old dynamic, he notices quietly, and he doesn't take the bait. That is the man you can be, not someday, now, starting with the very next decision you make. So, let's talk about what you actually do from here. Real, clear, non-nonsense direction. This is what self-relimation looks like in practice. You stop making yourself available in ways that are not reciprocated, not as punishment, not as strategy, but as a simple matter of self-respect. If someone has consistently shown you that they do not invest in you the way you invest in them, you adjust. You pull back your energy. You reroute it. You stop watering a garden that doesn't grow anything you need. You stop waiting for a signal from her before you decide how your day is going to go. She texts and your whole mood changes. She doesn't, and you spend 3 hours distracted, checking your phone, building narratives in your head. That ends now. Your day, your mood, your direction, those belong to you. They are not held hostage by someone else's communication schedule. You stop explaining yourself. When a man is secure, he does not over-explain. He does not justify why he's pulling back. He does not send the long message about where he's at and what he needs and why things feel different. If she asks a direct question, you answer it directly and briefly. But you are not in the business of performing emotional transparency for someone who never matched yours. Silence is not cruelty. Silence is sometimes the most honest thing you can give. You redirect the energy. Every moment you were spending thinking about her, analysing her behaviour, replaying conversations, drafting texts you didn't send, that energy is yours. Take it back. Put it somewhere it multiplies. Your gym session, your business idea, your craft, your friendships, your reading, your rest. Every single drop of attention the return, why she comes back, pour into your own growth, compounds over time. Every drop you pour into a woman who isn't fully choosing you evaporates. You build non-negotiables, not rules designed to impress anyone. Standards you hold because they reflect who you are. A man without non-negotiables is a man who will accept anything, and when you accept anything, people learn correctly that you have no flaw. You become negotiable. You become shapeable. And shapeable men are not respected. They are managed. You let her behaviour be what it is without attaching a story to it. She reaches out. It is what it is. She goes quiet again. It is what it is. She seems interested. It is what it is. Stop making her behaviour mean more than it means. It is information. Treat it like information, not like a verdict on your worth, not like a sign from the universe about whether or not you should open back up. Her behaviour tells you where she is, not who you are. And here's the one that's hardest and also most important. You allow yourself to fully grieve what this was, not the relationship as it actually existed, the idea of it, the version you wanted, the future you had mapped out. That dream deserves grief. Skipping the grief means carrying it forward. So you sit with it. You let it hurt. Not forever, but honestly, you don't numb it with hookups or social media or substances. You face it like a man who knows that pain processed is pain released, and pain avoided is pain prolonged. You are not trying to get over her in a weekend. You are trying to become the kind of man who no longer loses himself inside anyone. That takes longer, but it is worth every single difficult day. Now, let's talk about the moment she comes back fully, because some of you are going to face this. She doesn't just send a text. She wants to meet. She's vulnerable. She says she made a mistake. She says she misses you. She says she's been thinking about you. She says things that sound like everything you wanted to hear 6 months ago. What do? You listen. You don't perform. You don't rush to what not to do when she reaches out. Forgive and rebuild because the moment feels cinematic. You listen carefully and then you take your time. Not days. You're not being theatrical, but you give yourself the space to ask, what has actually changed? Not what is she saying right now in this emotionally charged moment, but what evidence exists that what happened before will not happen again. Because here is the brutal reality. A woman who comes back after losing you is not always coming back because she's grown. Sometimes she is coming back because she is uncomfortable with the uncertainty, because the validation she was getting elsewhere didn't fill what you filled, because she realized the next option wasn't what she expected, because she's lonely, because the ego hit of losing you is bothering her more than she expected. None of those reasons are about you. They're about her. And sometimes she comes back because she genuinely reflected, genuinely recognized what she had, and she is genuinely different. That exists too. People do grow. People do change, but growth is not declared. It is demonstrated over time in consistent behavior, in the small moments where old patterns would have surfaced and didn't. So you watch, you remain yourself. You do not immediately rebuild everything that was torn down just because the moment feels right. You keep your standards. You keep your pace. You let her show you who she's becoming rather than telling yourself who she is based on a conversation. If she's real, she'll respect that. If she was just scrambling, she'll lose patience when you don't immediately give her back the access she had before. And that patience, or lack of it, will tell you everything you need to know without you having to say a single word. This is what it means to be grounded. Not cold, not closed, grounded. You are rooted in who you are and what you require, and you don't get swept into anyone else's emotional weather system. Not out of self-P protection, out of self-respect. They're how to hold your power. Without losing yourself is a version of you that does not need anyone's return to feel complete. There is a version of you that is so engaged with the project of his own life that any person who wants to be part of it has to genuinely add to it. Not deplete it, not disrupt it, not complicate it without offering something real in return. That version of you is not a fantasy. He is the man you were always supposed to become before someone else's needs, someone else's inconsistency, someone else's confusion about their own feelings pulled you off the path. You have been so focused on whether you are enough for her. And the whole time, the real question was never that. The real question was always, is she enough for you? Is she the kind of woman who sees what you offer and chooses it fully and consistently? Is she the kind of woman who makes your life bigger, not smaller? Is she the kind of woman who respects you when you're not performing, who chooses you when you're not chasing, who shows up with the same energy she asks you to show up with? If the answer is yes, and you can look at the actual evidence, not the potential, not the good moments, not what she said she wants to be, then maybe something worth rebuilding exists there. If the answer is no, and you already know the answer, you've known it for a while. You've just been afraid to let it be true. Then her behavior changing now is a gift wrapped in an uncomfortable bow. It's the universe confirming that what you built in yourself over these last weeks or months is real. It's confirmation that your growth is working. It's confirmation that the man you are becoming is someone she can feel the loss of. That is not a tragedy. That is power. Let me say something plainly. You are not broken by what happened. You are sharper. You know things now that men who have never been through this don't know. You know the cost of abandoning yourself for someone else. You know the weight of confusing availability with love. You know the sound of someone's behavior when they're scrambling versus
when they're real. You know the feeling of silence that comes from self-respect rather than from games. You know the standard you must set, and never compromise means to finally choose yourself. And you cannot unknow any of that. You are the answer, not to her question, to your own. The answer to what kind of man are you? What kind of life are you building? What kind of relationship do you actually deserve? The answer to all of those is standing right there in the mirror, if you're willing to stop looking past it. You don't need her to come back. You don't need her to change. You don't need her to finally see your worth, because your worth was never in her line of sight to begin with. It was always inside you, waiting for you to stop handing it over to someone else for safekeeping. Reclaim it, keep it, build on it. Let it be the foundation of everything you do next, because the next chapter of your life, the chapter where you are deliberately, unapologetically, fully yourself, that chapter is not going to be written by her decision to come back or stay gone. It's going to be written by you every day. In every choice you make about where you direct your time, your energy, your love, your presence, your ambition. You are the author, not the character, waiting to see what she does. So write something worth reading. If this hits something in you today, if something here cracked open a conversation you needed to have with yourself, then subscribe right now, because this channel exists to give you what you need to hear, not what feels easy to hear. There is more of this coming, more clarity, more truth, more of the kind of perspective that gives you back your footing when everything final message. Become the man she can never replace feels unstable. Subscribe and let this be the place you come back to when you need to remember who you are. You're not alone in this. There are thousands of men watching this right now who know exactly what you've been carrying. They're in the comments, they're going through it, they're building through it. You are one of them, and we are all moving in the same direction. Forward, inward, upward. Welcome to the work.